During the show, type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, how women entering the non-traditional workforce is helping the economy. Where should we reallocate supplementary budgets to strengthen this? This year's topic for the International Women's Day is supporting women's economic empowerment. In Uganda, women activists have declared this day one of mourning rather than celebration for the way the government has handled the nodding disease epidemic in northern Uganda in solidarity with families affected by the syndrome. Despite the ratification of a raft of laws in support of the empowerment of women and the girl child by government, most women still languish in economic and social slavery as they are unable to gain control of their own personal circumstances and contribute meaningfully as a fully fledged citizenry of this country. As trade liberalization strategies are geared towards increasing export production, women farmers in the subsistence sector are often neglected. As a result, this non-economic or unpaid work goes unnoticed and is oftentimes not reflected in the design of government agricultural policies. Women are responsible for between 60 and 90% of total food production in Uganda. It is usually argued that participation of women in the export-oriented sector could not only raise their autonomous income earning activities capacity, but also create a huge positive trend in the country's GDP, as women make up 58% of Uganda's labor force. Women own 40% of small to medium enterprises in the country and are making great strides in education, and yet the majority are still unable to access asset financing. So as we ponder the theme of this year's International Women's Day, tonight we ask, what are the factors that restrict the growth of women into so-called non-traditional workplaces and economic avenues, and what challenges need to be overcome? Our guests tonight: Honorable Betty Amongi, Member of Parliament for Oyam County, South in Oyam District, also Chairperson of the Uganda Women Parliamentarians Association. You're most welcome, Honorable Amongi.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Ms. Isabel Akiteng, Women and Youth Activist. You're most welcome, Isabel.
Thank you very much.
Also joined by, well, a man, Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba, Uganda Country Manager twaweeza, former NRM Youth Leader, Rukunjiri District. You're most welcome, Mr. Rwakakamba.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, dear listeners.
Honorable Amongi, women at the moment make up a small percentage of Ugandans engaged in food export, for instance, mainly because they are smallholder farmers who don't have access to loans. They cannot easily purchase or inherit land. Do you have some study? Maybe Isabel, you can give us some statistics there of women engaged in commercial farming. What role do banks help them in getting finance? Is that an easy thing for them to access?
The issue of banks having a role to play is something that would work, but there are key underlying issues that need to be handled before you even get to that question. Issues like, is there a favorable climate, a favorable economic and political climate for the women to be able to access this? Take, for example, I think in the 2008 budget, we had an aspect of revolving tractors that were supposed to go around constituencies. At the end of the budget, there were no revolving tractors. Now, this is what the government has to offer. So even before you get to what commercial banks have to offer, which is expensive because you have interest rates attached to it, what sort of climate is the government giving to these women? Would be a question I would want to answer before we would even get ahead.
Would you like to answer that question now? What kind of climate has government done enough to help women get out of?
Again, I go back to the tractors. If you haven't given them tractors and you know that they're the majority agriculturists, then that is not a positive climate. Around last month, I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he shocked me when he told me that World Bank couldn't give loans to women in Uganda because they were subsistence farmers. Now, it isn't a shock that women are subsistence farmers. Everyone knows that most of them are subsistence farmers. Now, if that is where agriculture is going to start from, then what is World Bank thinking not giving them tractors. Going on, we have the policy of district creation. Now, if agriculture is to work, we're talking about large-scale agriculture, where we're going to commercialize agriculture. When you create a district, you're allocating land to a hospital, to official premises. You see, you fragment it to the point that even if I got a loan, it's not going to help me. So as far as environment and climate goes, it's not favorable. So even if the banks gave us as many loans as possible, the issue of money or of the woman's well-being being handled may not come into place, because even the land on which she can carry out agriculture is questioned. Right. You know, it becomes a huge puzzle, right, at the end of the day.
All right, Honorable Amongi, let's look at it on a more broad front. What are the factors that hold back women generally in this country?
Maybe broadly we could talk about the question of ownership versus access. At the moment, what we are trying to look at as a plan B, if I'm to say, is on the question of land. If women cannot own land because of the deep-seated cultural norms and values, then we are moving towards the question of access. And for us, we are trying to look at how do we ensure we engage the traditional institutions, the cultural institutions, to ensure that at least women own access. And the studies we've done indicates that in most of these settings, especially women who are traditionally married, the clans will usually not deny women access. Actually, the study we did in Bundibuju, in Busoga, and some part of northern Uganda also indicates that even when a husband has, for example, separated with the first wife, but when the wife has children, the man would be asked to shift and leave the woman with her garden. So actually, traditionally, we have now ascertained that women have access to land. The only issue for loans with the Centenary Bank, they have moved a little bit beyond only dealing with ownership. In the traditional setting, Centenary Bank, we engaged with them, and Centenary Bank now offers loan to women, or even not only women, in customary, those who own land customarily, because the Land Act actually underpins one customary as one of the system of land ownership. So with Centenary Bank, they make sure the clan leader signs, the family sign, and once you get the signature from the clan head, the household of that clan, and the family members, if you have 2 wives, you have to make both wives sign, they will give you a loan. So it's only maybe cumbersome, but in customary, and you know, a lot of land is owned customarily. So that is the way around we've tried to go on it. The other issue we are looking at is the question of post-harvest handling, because majority of the women in the rural area practice agriculture. But what we've realized, when you come to sell in Owino, for example, you are coming from Kasese, you are coming from Apach, or from Bududa, or wherever you're coming from, they want quality to sell in Nakasero. So how do we ensure post-handling to ensure women at least can access some basic, mechanization that can make them sort the produce and pack it in a way that can be sold. There are many other policies which we need to learn. Has it work? Has it not work? For example, we have NADS, which the assessment is as if The NERDS is supposed to offer extension services. It's supposed to train extension workers, and the extension workers are supposed to train the women groups and other people in each of these areas, but unfortunately it's cumbersome. While it's working, it's not translated into 100% the way it's working. So she stated the policy on tractor. I think the policy of tractor has somehow not taken off, and for us we are now looking at how do you, if you cannot manage the big tractor, what about the walking tractor, for example? A number of the MPs have introduced walking tractors in their constituency, and the beauty with walking tractors for women, which I have in my constituency, is that the walking tractor has other services it provides. It can be used for when you are coming back from the field. You have the carrier which you can put there firewood.
Right. So it's something. It's like a wheelbarrow.
Exactly.
What does it look like?
It's not big like a tractor, but it has a carrier and also has a tractor attached to it.
Yes.
And it
has plows, for instance.
It has a plow, and also it has the tires, just like.
Is it motorized?
It's motorized. So if you want only to use the tractor part of it, you don't attach the trailer. But if you want, for example, that as you come back, you put your cassava, you carry your produce, you carry your water, then you can attach that.
Right.
So we are now looking at how do we extend. It's something not very expensive. It goes for around between 5 to 10 million, depending on what accessories you.
It's not very expensive.
It's not very expensive. For policy, if government is to roll it out, it will not be expensive.
Right.
But for a rural woman, it will be expensive.
Okay.
I'm looking at the policy side of it. If we were to abandon the tractor and say let's start with a walking tractor, I would see that it would be much more better. Okay, do you want me to stop?
Go on.
Let's start with a politician. It's not good. The other issue we are looking at as women parliamentarians is the question of gender budgeting and engaging Ministry of Finance through microfinance to see, because we have seen that the current circle has not worked.
All right, we'll talk about gender budgeting because I know that's a big topic. Thank you very much, Honorable Betty Amongi. Morrison, the Honorable MP paints a very glorious picture of the state of women in Uganda. Do you agree with that, or is there? I mean,
I think in some aspects I absolutely do agree with her, and thanks I think to President Museveni and NRM, you know, that the journey for women emancipation and women in renaissance in this country began. Yes, they are still bumpy. Not all is already well. But from what she's saying, especially from the corridors of power there in Parliament, you can see that a lot for women is absolutely going on in the country. If you look at the civil service, public service, even in women in business, I mean, there is a lot going on. I think even the National Chamber of Commerce, which is an industry, you know, the biggest business entity in this country is led by a woman, the biggest capital city, and all that. Anyway, but out from that, what I want to say on empowerment, economic empowerment of women, is true. Over 77% of the workforce, of 4 million households in the country, are absolutely engaged in agriculture. And with the universal primary education, with the universal secondary education, there we have very serious labor deficit at the farm. So there is certainly a very serious need for labor-saving technologies, and definitely the hand tractor, the big tractor, is going to be a key issue. For the past three years, I've been doing farm walks and farmers' fireplace conversation, and I met women in Kamwenge on the farm. You know, she has this big farm. She has tried to do pineapples, but somehow she cannot manage, because to hire people to dig on her farm, she has to pay between 5,000 and 4,000 per day. So if you are to have 5 months of intensive farm care,
it's going to be expensive for them.
Yeah. And certainly the other dilemma from our farmer households is that there is no cost benefit analysis in farmer enterprises. people don't calculate how much time am I going to spend on this farm and how much is it going to cost. People don't seriously record how much money they spend on procuring seed, how much money they spend on procuring pesticides and all these other things they use around the farm, the transport to take things to the market. So at the end of the day, they can't even calculate their margin. So all the time across there, they are working on the loss. And I think it's a very serious problem. So this is why, for me, in this country, at the policy level, business development services should be subsidized. And this is why I think if Enterprise Uganda is reviewed and it is seen that it is working very well, for enterprise, I think it should extend, or NADS extend, to have clear business development services that would give that kind of expertise, for smallholder farmers. Then Honorable Betty touched a bit on extension services. I think the NADS rubric, it needs to be reconfigured. Absolutely. Why? Because the law of NADS is absolutely to offer advisory services to farmers. You have 4 million households that are engaged into farming, and it's only fair that every household be reached with this advisory and information. But if you have only 16,000 extension workers, it actually means that you actually need 7 years
to cover the entire country,
to cover the entire farmer households, and that actually means that will be one visit. And is one visit enough? So how I think NADS needs to move forward is actually placate or moderate partnerships with other private sector entities that are engaged into agriculture extension, or even associations like Uganda National Farmers Association. Because before they trained what they called extension link farmers, these were so many in every village who had bicycles, and they had certificates in green and I think yellow certificates in agronomy and all those kinds. Because you see, you don't need a nuclear scientist. You need basic skills that would allow people improve productivity.
Right.
The other key issue is about our soils, is that our soils have been depleted at a very unprecedented rate. And recently,
do you have scientific evidence?
Absolutely. There is a report by SIAG, it's an IFPRI and the SIGA. These are American agents that came here and tested the soils and found out that we have got a lot of potassium in our soils.
Right.
But we don't have urea.
Potassium is salt.
Yeah, we don't have nitrogen. And
right.
So what is happening is that our soils across the country need extensive investment into nitrogen.
Right.
But when you check around the shops that are selling fertilizer, they're actually selling NPK. And NPK is largely potassium. So you need very deliberate investment by government to deploy or subsidize fertilizer or subsidize this organic as nutrients in order to transform agriculture at that level. She also talked about, do people have information in terms of market information, in terms of when to plant, in terms of what type of seed to grow? Is that information available? And I think as we move forward, we need to be a bit more, to leverage the circumstances that we are in. We have got I think 228 FM stations that would absolutely be channels for serious information. You have got 10.4 million people on mobile phones.
Yes.
You have got 3.2 million people who browse internet on a daily basis. How, as a government, how, as the private sector, have we leveraged those information channels to make sure that important information reaches the farmers? And for me, the parliament and the government and leaders at all levels, they need to take up this information, find where that information is, and use these information channels to reach farmers. APRABS was here and Google, and they are trying to test how to achieve digital extension. Yes. Where if you have a mobile phone and you reach your banana plantation and it is wilting and there is a problem,
you can text the question and they tell you what's the problem with your,
and then they can tell you that actually you need to apply something like this. That is how you're going to reach 4 million households of so many farmers.
It's not materialized, has it?
It hasn't materialized, but I think it is something that needs to be looked at carefully, needs to be harnessed with different linguistic connotations around the country in order to be a bit effective.
Isabel, the impression I get from this discussion tonight is that generally there are no more barriers. A woman can get to any level they want to get to. The emancipation for common ones has been achieved.
Just to continue what he was saying, even as you...
Let's first get from the broad perspective. The woman is emancipated. That's the question I'd like to have an answer to. Do you think we've scored that goal? So we can talk about details now.
No, she's is not.
What are some of the roadblocks that remain?
Now, here is the thing. You see, when you talk about emancipation, people have a certain definition to the word emancipation. But at times you need to contextualize emancipation to actually get the true definition. When you look at agriculture, what is your definition of an emancipated farmer?
Let's get that from you.
An emancipated farmer is one who can comfortably buy and sell on the market without any hindrances. An emancipated farmer is one who has, who has freedom to fly without their wings being clipped. Okay? Now, do Ugandan farmers have freedom to fly?
Women farmers.
Do women farmers have freedom to fly? Let's go back, to some of the issues that have been raised. They talk about NADS, okay? And NADS would have been the perfect place to have a set of flight for female farmers. In my village, when the president came to visit the NADS projects, they were carrying goats across households.
Yes.
Because
recycling them.
Because only one household had the goats. Okay? So what is that? Is that freedom to fly?
So basically,
no.
Let's say to one day, this is a structural thing. So basically, the woman has equal opportunities as the man. Technically speaking, as we speak now, because that'd be a big milestone. That's what I would like to get out of the way. Then we can discuss the details.
No.
What are the roads, specific to women?
Again, now, here's the thing. When you look at challenges that we are faced with, one of the mistakes we have is dealing with what you see. Okay? But then let's go back to the rural woman. She does not have the same opportunities as a man because she does not have the freedom to carry her produce to the market and comfortably put it there and bargain just like a man.
Let's get it clear. The woman tills the land. When harvest time comes, the man shows up.
Yes.
It still happens.
It still happens.
Do you get that impression, Honorable Amongi?
I think the first issue I want to deal with in this context is the social construction before and now. What was the social status of a woman
yes.
in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and now?
Yes.
Would a woman wake up one morning and go and tilt land?
Yes.
For example, if a woman makes a decision that this piece of land, I want cotton, I don't want beans, would that be something that she can make a decision
in
of?
The 40s, would the answer be yes or no?
It would be no. Definitely.
And now?
But in the 40s, she still went to the garden.
And now?
But now, I would think that
the woman has a say on it.
A woman has a say. Even a man, those days, would be the sole decision maker. But now,
these days they consult.
They engage, they consult.
Well, this is Spectrum Radio. We're not going for a break. We'll be back to flood this debate.
Before you get, as we come back, as we come back.
Promotion. Kutoka MTN. Win 10 million shillings every day for 90 days. SMS win to 175.
Win, everybody. It is time to win lots of money. And all you have to do is Sukun SMS. Big up MTN for this promotion.
Chino Chifufu.
Win 10 million shillings every day for 90 days. Simply SMS WIN to 175 to play and win. MTN Sukuma SMS.
Terms and conditions apply.
MTN. Everywhere you go. John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back to Spectrum. And on Spectrum tonight, how women entering the non-traditional workforce is helping the economy. Where should we reallocate supplementary budgets to strengthen this? Our guests tonight, Honorable Betty Amongi, Member of Parliament for Oyam County South in Oyam District. She's also the Chairperson of the Uganda Women Parliamentary Association, a very influential body in the Augusta House.
Like the IPAC.
There you are. We're also joined by Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba, Uganda Country Manager at twaweeza, former twaweeza of the Calendar fame, also former NRM Youth Leader, Rukonjiri District, and Miss Isabel Akiteng, Women and Youth Activist. You'll be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Isabel, you think there are still dark spots that women need to be liberated from economically?
Dark spots, yes. You see, what is happening here is we are celebrating just now. Let me allude this to something. You know, the way everyone celebrates the fact that we have very many female MPs in Parliament and we have a female speaker, but then when you get down to the tangibles and you look at the output, you're not seeing how the very many women actually are contributing to what turns into the final outcome. You probably expect them to pass a supplementary budget on the nodding disease, and then it doesn't happen. That is the same thing that is happening with this farmer, with the farmer structure. Everything seems rosy until you begin to ruffle the feathers. Yes, until you begin to ruffle the feathers. Because yes, the ideal is that women have access, and it can also be seen with the programs that government is putting across the national plan. You look at NADS, you look at NUSAF, but when you go down to the details, and then I come back to what you talked about, do they have information enough to be able to set off? No. In the first NUSAF project, they brought chicken to the women and gave them exotic chicken. Exotic chicken do not survive in the local areas. So yes, there is everything rosy until you ruffle the feathers.
I think, let me just answer this. I think we need to weigh the scale. There are issues that cuts across.
Men and women.
The NUSAF is men and women.
True.
So if it has failed, it is both for women.
It's not a gender thing.
So what we have to make the examination here is what was that women couldn't that they can do now. In 20 years ago, if, for example, NUSAF had come to northern Uganda, would women have access to NUSAF? That's the question. So you would
the answer, they would not.
They would not.
They
and now
access.
They can.
All right.
In Parliament, I wouldn't be able to stand with men. I stood with 6 men in a rural constituency. And by the way, the men were decampaigning me saying, she's just a woman.
Just a woman.
But I got overwhelming votes, both from men and women. Would it happen 20 years ago?
No, it wouldn't. And we celebrate that, but I think even in our celebrations, we need to have minimum standards.
All right, Morrison, where do we go from here? We seem to have made a breakthrough, milestones already. Where do we go from here? How do we take it? There are some things that we haven't done. Yeah. How do we take it down? Then we'll come to you, Honorable Amongi. I'd like you to talk to us about gender-based budget.
I mean, you can see the agency. You can see how women in this studio are absolutely exercising agency. And this is no mean feat, absolutely. That you can have, you know, a panel of women leaders here making these very serious articulations. So, having said that, again, you're asking me, how do we move forward?
Yes.
We're talking about smaller holder farmers. And I want to also link that to, again, agency. If smaller holder farmers, who are majority women, will make it to markets, if they will make sure that they leverage their produce and make sure they benefit from it,
yes,
they need to exercise agency individually and agency collectively by joining farmer groups that organically emerge and whose business is to make sure that they collectively produce, they collectively do market intelligence, and that they collectively negotiate the best prices. You have a situation now where if you are a maize farmer in Masindi, you can pick up your phone and call a trader in Busia and say, what's going on, what's the price? How are Kenyans buying? And if that is done, then it means that even if you're selling your 20 kilos of maize from this deep village in Masindi, you should be able to get that price, which used to be scooped off by the middleman. So what you need to do now is to have strong farmer associations that have got the power of collectivity to access information and leverage that information. And then secondly, the other key issue is going to be research, and this is why the budget architecture for agriculture by the parliament, they need to look at the numbers clear and see what is going into agriculture research, because many a time women, smallholder farmers take on enterprises, but those enterprises don't seem to materialize. They are attacked by weeds, they are attacked by diseases. Sometimes the germination and the flowering doesn't take place the way it is supposed to take place. So certainly you need deep strategic investment. Again in research and science and Kawanda and all of that. So I'm really trying to look at the future of agriculture sector in Uganda, and I think now the planning should be again by local governments. Why can't our local governments be run as production and marketing units?
Right.
And you say, if it is in Ntungamo districts, if it is Guru district, what is Guru known for? How are you planning your district to produce, to market, and to bring investment into your area?
Right.
So I think that it is still so much centralized, kind of planning and reporting and disbursement of resources. But I think there is no organic perspective of bottom-down, kind of planning that would bring resources that are aligned to the peculiarities of different areas.
Honorable Amongi, maybe you take us to the next level, gender-based budgeting. Can you explain that to us a little bit and how it can be implemented?
Gender-based budgeting is a process where you ensure that the national budgets takes care of both the needs of men and women, girls and boys. In the circumstance that if you make it a gender-blind budget, it can be a good budget, let's say for agriculture or health or even education, but beneath it, it is gender blind. So gender responsive budgeting would be, how do you ensure that the outputs in the budget translate into benefits for both men and
so basically you're saying in the past it was male, well mostly men, the men made the decision. Now you're saying let's have the mind of a woman.
Yes, into the budget.
Picture her in the village,
exactly.
Long distances, 12 centers, access to water and so on.
Yeah, for example, our priority now as women parliamentarians are that, for example, if you get into health, you can get a very good health budget, but what we examine, how much of it is going to build, for example, maternity. If you tell me you're going to construct this financial year 20 health centers, I will ask, are they outpatient or are they both outpatient and they also have maternity wards, and what are the equipments inherent in it? If you tell me you're going to do agriculture, I will ask within the agriculture, are you going to ensure that you have services to the women groups? Are you going to ensure that you put market there? What about the infrastructure linking the women from harvesting to marketing? What are the infrastructure in the budget that will link a woman getting from home to the health center to produce, for example? Are there ambulances that if a woman is pregnant will transfer her from point A to point B when she has complication? So those are the nitty-gritty that you have to analyze to make sure that the budget is gender responsive.
All right. Do we see that happening soon? Very briefly.
We are trying very hard in most of this budget. Now, as women parliamentarians, we have a technical team within Parliament that makes analysis and makes sure that the analysis is given to us, and each of the committee we go to, because each committee deals with a sector or ministry.
Right.
We make sure that it's integrated in the budget. So we are already implementing it.
All right, things like the girl child having pads at school and things like that.
Like, for example, we made sure the taxes on sanitary pads were removed, what we are now moving to is asking the Ministry of Education to distribute free sanitary pads.
Can the government afford it? Have you worked out the figures?
The minister is working out the figure. For example, this financial year, we made sure that we had 20 billion for maternal health to distribute free, they call it mama kit, to all the health centers. They recruit more midwives because those are the ones who will attend to the pregnant women. Right. So there are many things we are doing to make sure the budget is gender responsive.
And you're happy with the progress?
We are not 100%. You need to begin from somewhere.
Right.
Yes.
Isabel, what's your assessment of that? Are we making headway?
Yes, we are making headway, but one thing that I would like the Women's Parliamentary Group to be very clear about is the difference between what they're offering us right now and what was offered before. We had Niginas at community level.
Village cooperatives.
Yes, we had Bonava Gagawale. What is so different about this? And also when they talk about decentralizing, I like the fact that they're going into the nitty-gritties of ambulances and so on and so forth. But in January, I sat down with an official from the Ministry of Health who actually signed off money to buy ambulances, to buy double cabins. And I was telling him, how do you buy a double cabin and call it an ambulance? Now, you see, it's one thing for the MPs to plan this out, but how does this trickle down? And that is where I go back to my original statement. Is there a favorable and conducive environment for plans that this amazing member of parliament has to actually be able to sprout? Because at the end of the day, they may be so amazing, but the environment will just kill them.
Briefly, before we come to Morrison, where is the disconnect with that kind of case study?
I think the disconnect, first of all, is the finances.
No, because that's the real implementation. You make a good plans, buy an ambulance, and somebody buys a double cabin. We don't have enough women still.
And he says they need to carry charcoal. That was his argument.
I wouldn't know about whether they had to carry charcoal or not, but what we've been explaining in most circumstances about you put the money or you budget for ambulances, and at the end of it, the money is not enough. If you are to buy actual ambulances, the real ambulance, it would be, for example, maybe 10. But if you are to buy a double cabin, it would be maybe 30.
But a double cabin can't work as an ambulance.
But it is working right now.
They put the woman in the second
seat. Thank you. Which and those were my questions. I was telling him, how do you put someone on oxygen in an ambulance? How do you put a pregnant woman who is due in an ambulance? And again, I got that
in a double cabin.
In a double cabin. And you see, at the end of the day, it goes back to the same problem we are having. We have amazing policies, but the environment is just not right. Everything could work out, but it's just not right.
Morrison, explore that for us.
Yeah, what I want to say on that is that I think everybody has a responsibility. I mean, the culture and the perception in the country, which I would want to change, is that everybody tries to make an excuse to think that somebody else should actually do a certain job for them. They all keep waiting and they don't do anything. Instead, what we've been trying to say is that people should absolutely be the change they seek. And how I want to relate this to this budget architecture is that I think we now need to shift from allocations per se within the sectors at the national budget, but really how is that money spent? And that is budget tracking,
yes,
and accountability. And that can be best done by citizens and leaders at the local level. So this is why the idea from the President and the Prime Minister's Office of Barazas was such a powerful idea, that if you can have conversations at the village level, conversations at the parish level, conversations at the sub-county level, people saying how many ambulances were allocated in the budget, how many kilos of better seed were sent to this sub-county, did it actually reach, what change did it make? And they would use such kind of information to hold leaders accountable and to make sure that whatever is planned in the budget is actually implemented. But what you see now is that most people are a bit escapist and they have been co-opted. But I think I want to thank Parliament, because I think now they are looking at the budget line by line, and their budgeting competencies as their role as legislators has improved. So now, the shift should be on tracking that budget, and citizens, leaders at the local level, and all of us should be keen to make sure that our money, our taxpayers' money, is actually deployed to what it's supposed to do.
Isabel, you want to say something
very,
about
very briefly, I totally agree with him, but let's look at the flip side of this. He talks about barazas, and barazas is an amazing idea, and I salute the president. But you see, the barazas are chaired by the resident district commissioner, the RDC.
Yes.
They are not going to work. Thank you.
No, the idea of a baraza is not just about the RDC. I mean, in my village, I can start a baraza.
You're asking the RDC to chair a meeting to talk about how the LC5 did not buy the right things? No, that
I think
no,
for
the
me,
issue is the information.
Can it, like
with the RDC, it's not going to come out. The RDC is the watchdog of the government.
I don't
he
agree with
practically terrorizes the citizens.
All right. Okay. Let's talk about the woman up there. Before we hear from the listeners, very briefly, Isabel again. The government, do we still see the glass ceiling? Or are women in the boardroom fully emancipated, in your view? We've spoken about the other woman. How about the woman up there, the career woman, like they say?
The woman up there, he's pointing at me very enthusiastically. I may be very independent, but there's one thing that I'll go on record with. I have been harassed, you see, as a woman.
Explain that.
And you know, it's not just sexual harassment, but it also goes to emotional, psychological harassment. You're a woman, as in, you do this and then everyone gives you this strange look. Yes, we are emancipated, we are getting there, we are better than the local woman, and I am happy. At least we are above 50%. We are working at it. We are good to go.
Honorable Amongi, do you get such trouble?
I think I want to pick something I got from a woman, a senior commissioner from URA. I sat with her for long, and she told me a very long story, but the short of the story is that empowerment is coming with a price to pay for most women.
What does that mean?
And for her, it was like, you know, I have this friend who is a big lawyer with estates, but she comes to me and she cries, I can't get married because men fear me, that I'm too rich.
A topic for another day. Well, listen, this is Spectrum on Radio. Our number 041-434-8111.
You can pay by price and get a husband.
031-261-390. When you call in, please tell us in man.
In India, you actually pay.
Spectrum, hello. Hide some of the wealth, perhaps. Spectrum, hello. Begin to arrive at work on foot. Okay, Spectrum, hello.
And it's a true story.
Hello, I know that could be.
Hello.
Yes, sir, your name?
I'm Katuramu.
Yes, Mr. Katuram.
I'm supporting the MP who is saying some people are misusing government properties, particularly in Kenya. So the second thing is, I want to advise that I teach agriculture, and I've been out of the country for several years. We found that the ladies or women in our village are the one who does the donkey's work. Most of the men are drinking or laboring some at the beaches. For me, could advise the ladies, we start in group work, cultivator and bulkers who normally procure crops and store them in bulk stores, then marketeers. And the marketeers are the one who can make research of how much maize or beans is sold across the border. And then that can be a custodian of a cooperative. And that's what I advise, that the ladies will benefit from that advice.
Spectrum, hello? 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 Okay, you're live on Spectrum, my friend. Spectrum. Hello? Okay, all right. Let's go to the next caller. Spectrum, hello? Hello, well. Hello? There seems to be an issue with the line. Let's get back to the studio. Isabel, women should do group work, cooperatives, marketing as well. Is that something that will work? Morrison, talk to us about that.
Yeah, this.
Hello? Yes, hello, your name?
Hello?
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 Yes, you're live on Spectrum. Your name?
This is very good calling from Kakila Porota.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Please go on with your question.
Yeah. As far as the money emancipation is concerned, I give a credit to all Nigerian government because it has done a lot. You see that every district has a representative in the parliament, so it is upon them to look for their fellow women. Then on the other issue of agriculture, at least there should be timely planting and harvesting. On top of that, market should be available. Thank you.
All right. Morrison, talk to us.
Yeah, I think it's very important. The issue of working collectively will never cease to be important. And it's not that women should just form only a women's group. I think they should join already existing groups, or they should form groups where also men are involved. Because a moderation of men and women working together, you know, and using your own skills in that unique way, then they achieve better results. It shouldn't be like, women just alone, forming smaller groups here and there. It's for women, we are doing women things. I don't think that is going to take us further. The key issue is, can we have these groups that can competently scout for those markets, that you don't just go to a farm and negotiate, take her coffee, but that you negotiate with a group. So even if you're a smart middleman, there is no way you're going to cheat a group of 20 or 30 people. So it shouldn't be about the farm gate. And you see, when they come together, then they invest in things like stores, like what Katuram was talking about. Then they can manage their post-harvest handling better. Then they can even get equipment for value addition. And they can even together be able to get loans from commercial banks and negotiate better interest rates. So working together in groups exercises their agency and ability to penetrate even cross-border markets. So I think it is absolutely going to be important.
Isabel?
Yes, and providing an extension to what he's saying, there ought to be an output source to that. If you look at the power of cooperatives, and you look at what cooperatives did to us in the era that they existed, there was a lot of economic growth. But for one reason or the other, they sort of died out.
The government discouraged them. They wanted to privatization, liberalization.
So something like that. But again, if you have a highly subsistence society, privatization will probably begin from there. You see, after you having a place that you can have collective bargaining and boost on your exports, then it was the perfect place to start.
Collectivization.
Yes, so all I'm saying is that even with the groups being formed, the groups are going to have produce and will probably want to export the produce, but there has to be another entity that does this bargaining for the groups, because what is the guarantee that if you had 10 groups in a district, you will have a stable price across the board? I think cooperatives need to be rethought and brought back to the table.
I want to just, beyond the cooperative, the economic situation at the moment is driven by the global economy.
Yes.
I am actually very happy that when you step in a plane going to Dubai, you find so many women in that plane going and coming back. If you just walk down Loom Street, you will find those driving the economy are women. So to me, beyond the question of cooperative, how do we empower the women?
The individual woman.
The individual woman. Because we have also seen examples like, for example, the lady who is so empowered, the Victoria Seeds. She is galvanizing the local woman, selling the seeds to them, and then getting the products and from them. So how do we also get the women who are already empowered, who can access the credit, to go back and organize women, to make them become more empowered, to provide the market? So it's working. There are women out there who are organizing fellow women and making sure that they are offered market post-harvest and so on. And really for me, I see that we mix what has worked before with what is the political economy of now. The political economy globally now, people are going into private-public partnership.
Yes.
So we need also women who can engage into the economic dynamics of today that can empower others. A woman who can go to Lira and get the women in the market, those who are selling tomatoes. That's why in Parliament we actually passed a law to make sure that the markets are built so that women who are selling near the roads, women in the market have where they can store their produce and where they can sell.
Right.
So there are several other opportunities out there.
Okay. Honorable Amongi, Mr. Katram said women still do the donkey's work.
Yeah.
Does that pertain in the village? The men go to drink. How do you change that?
It is really true. Actually, for me, there's a study by CARE International that actually now says that it's the women who are feeding the men. It's the women, they feed a political economy of post-war in northern Uganda. And the study concludes that in northern Uganda now, it's the women who are digging, it's the women who are paying school fees, it's the women who are buying clothes even for the men. So actually the tales is changing, that women now have become breadwinner, and it's worse in the village. Here you have a man who works and can pay fees, will drive the kids to school, but in the villages it's the women going to feeding the whole family. To change that needs really a social construct. It needs sensitization. It needs maybe to get the men to now also start the sensitization on the question of roles. We should now be to again reorient men to know what they're
supposed to be in the home.
Yes.
Morrison, has this whole debate, discussion, well, not specifically discussed, this whole movement of emancipating, I'm using very overused words, emancipating the woman, has it contributed in any way to the breakdown of traditional marriages, if at all?
Well, I'm not expert on this marriage, but I don't think so. I really don't think so, Edmond. I think emancipation, actually, liberation of women should make marriage better, because it means that they participate in decision making. It means that they sit around the table and participate in whatever goes on, and that even direct the way marriage goes. And Honorable Amongi has just said it, that in most cases, actually, women have become breadwinners. Women are everywhere around the world doing business. And I think this is something that as Africa we need to celebrate. And we are having women doing great stuff. And now there is a consensus, especially in this country, that what a man can do, a woman can do.
Right.
Whether it is being a CEO of Kampala,
they can do it.
They can do it.
Whether it's being Speaker of the Parliament.
Absolutely.
Isabel.
She's there on the women's ticket, and she has been there more than once. I think next time she should stand
to be president.
No, on the constituency and leave the women representative.
Isabel, have women been over-emancipated? Have women been over-emancipated? They fear to be dated because they drive 3 cars, the man has no.
Pardon?
Have women been over-emancipated? She raised the issue of you are a woman who has her own cars, and men, they fear to date her.
I think over-emancipated is milking it a little too much. No, they have been emancipated. We have success stories in Uganda. We have Maggie Chigozi. We have the lady from Victoria's Seeds. There are quite a number of women who have managed to make it, and they are icons to us, and we celebrate them. But they shouldn't be the minimum standard to which we measure this. I think there ought to be minimum standards. As I said, it's just like saying that because we are living in peace right now, we should continue to celebrate, even despite the challenges we have in the governance structure today. If Uganda was a child, she would be over 18, and that is mature enough. So flipping it back to women emancipation simply because we have those success stories doesn't mean that we need to sit down and lean back and relax and say all is well.
But how do you deal with that, just before we go?
Yeah.
Now, what advice would you give to a woman in that category? She's got a lot of wealth, gold earrings, gold watch, and 3 cars.
No,
and she needs to get married. How should you handle her?
No, what we've always said, how do you balance
hide
family?
Some of the cars or what?
No, how do you balance family and it's really to know your
If she's not married, men are fearing to approach her, what would you tell her to do?
I would tell her, if you are interested in a man and you love her, go and ask him out.
We have to end that now.
Go to
Parliamentarians, County South, Chairperson of the Uganda Women Parliamentarians. Thank you for coming to Spectrum. Mr. Morrison Rwakakamba, Uganda Country Manager, twaweeza, former NRM Youth Leader, Konjeri District. Thank you for coming to Spectrum. And Isabel Akiteng, Women and Youth Activists. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond.
Thank you.
Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Up next is the news. Do stay tuned.